Welcome to the Diversity Connector podcast, where we explore the rich tapestry of human experiences. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging, and together as we dive into conversations that bridge cultures, challenge stereotypes, and celebrate the unique perspectives each of us brings to the table. Each episode is a journey through stories and insights from a kaleidoscope of voices, each sharing their colorful narrative. Whether you're at home, on the go, or just anywhere in between, you're now part of a community that values understanding, inclusivity, and the beauty of diversity. So plug in your headphones, get comfortable, and let's connect through the power of our shared stories. Welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Diversity Connector podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Diversity Connector. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating guest. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hi there, everybody. My name is Guy Battle. I am the Chief Executive of a business called Social Value Portal. So I think looking back at one pivotal moment, it was probably as I left a business called Deloitte. Many of you might have heard Deloitte. And the UK government launched something called the Social Value Act. My background's always been sustainability in some form or other, and I've always been sort of conscious about the impact that people have had on the planet. And in particular, the first part of my career was very focused on the environmental aspects of that impact and how do we ensure that we minimize that impact or even sort of regenerate. In 2012, the UK government launched something called the Social Value Act. And I was asked by a retiring MP at that point, someone called Hazel Blairs, if I would do a review of the Social Value Act and see how it was impacting business. And the Social Value Act was all about, or in fact required businesses to embed social value or embed sustainability into their procurement decision making. And on reading the Act and doing some work with businesses who were trying to apply it, I guess my realization was that all my career was working up to this point. A career of measurement, a career of understanding impact, a career of understanding the environmental aspects of sustainability, to a point where I was now focused and forced to think about how do people fit into the equation of sustainability? How do we ensure that we have a means of measuring, reporting, and improving the outcomes for people, for society, for our communities? And I guess that was the moment when I realized that my sustainability journey was actually becoming full. Up to that point, it'll be environmental, a bit of economic, but now it was all about people. And that was the point in 2013, 2014, when I decided to set up Social Value Portal. I'll keep going. So having set up Social Value Portal in 2014, I then built the platform, and it's a cloud-based solution, actually. It's a solution that helps organizations measure and value their social value. And it helps organizations put a pound or dollar value on their impact. It's a triple bottom line solution, so it combines the social, economic, and environmental impact of an organization. And in that respect, it's rooted in the Brundtland Report of 1987, the report published by the UN Sustainable Development Organization, from which the Sustainable Development Goals grew. And so this platform I've built helps organizations understand that social and measure their social, environmental and economic impact. And what's different about it is that it puts a pound value on that, or puts a social value on it. One of the things that I've been particularly, I guess, sort of both happy to support, but also frustrated by over the past few years, has been the fact that the sustainability movement seems to have been taken over by the charge for net zero. And whilst climate change is a massive challenge for humanity, climate change is a massive opportunity or not opportunity, but a massive moment in humanity's life. I think climate change is not the only issue. We also need to think about how people fit into that equation, sort of justice. And so one of the things that we've been pushing at Social Value Portal is to getting sort of the person back at the center of the discussion. Of course, we've got to get planet there, but it's about people, planet and place for us. And how do we ensure that we are managing that?
Guy, with your vast experience in sustainable development, how do you see diversity playing a role in leadership within this field? And could you share some examples where diverse leadership teams have led to innovative, sustainable solutions?
So I think I should explain and define social value for you, and that'll help me explain how diversity works and how diversity plays into this. So I've spoken earlier about sustainability and social value. Those two sort of sit side by side. Social value is very much a triple bottom line sort of environment, a triple bottom line movement looking at social, economic, environmental impacts, and sustainability is the same in that respect. But social value goes kind of one step further. It says, how do we build something? How do we add value? And in that respect, it's encouraging organizations to have impact. And of course, we need to think about the impact we want. At Social Value Portal, we define impact as a diverse range of outcomes. So we think about jobs for disadvantaged people, jobs for minorities. We think about women in business. We think about supporting local economy. We think about supporting local minority-owned businesses. We think about encouraging volunteering into our communities. We think about climate change and reducing carbon. And all those aspects of sustainability is how we consider these issues. And so by our very nature of our organization, what we measure, diversity sits at the core of that, because there is no one aspect of sustainability that is more important than the other. It's about finding that balanced scorecard, if you like, across everything. And so I think in terms of diversity, I'm thinking to some of the businesses that we're working with to help them unlock value in their communities, and they're asking themselves how they contribute to the society. And if they want to build a diverse society, they'll be thinking about how they support businesses that are owned by minorities. And we've been working with a company called Sodexo and another company called Compass Group, where they have particular programs around supporting local businesses that minority owned. And I think in that respect, we're seeing a shift in businesses that are recognizing they have a role in society above and beyond just making profit. I mean, plainly, that is a motive that drives many businesses, for better, for worse. And you could argue that's a good thing because we need our pensions. But actually, business can have a bigger and greater purpose. It can be not only about their core business, it's about how they go about their business and how they deliver value to society.
Given your background in business advisory and assurance services, how do you ensure that your advisory practices promote inclusivity and diversity, both within teams and in the strategies that you recommend to clients?
What we need to avoid is social washing. And pulling the wool over people's eyes because the business that is doing the good has got a great story and has employed people to create a narrative that actually hides the truth. So from our perspective, my background, as I mentioned, is having worked at Deloitte for a number of years. And so I learned a lot about assurance and auditing. And the key thing about assurance and auditing, for that matter, is the evidence, is the proof. It's not good enough just to say you've done something good. You need to prove that you've done that. And you also need to think about the outcome, the impact, and is there a way of measuring that outcome and impact? And that's what we do at Social Value Portal. We help organizations in the first instance develop a strategy for diverse supply chains, for instance. We'll help them then think about the activities they have to undertake to deliver diverse supply chains, and then using our platform, our cloud-based solution, will make sure that they report and monitor against their targets, and then finally we'll make sure that there is proof and evidence to show that they've delivered against that. And I think that in this world of sustainability, one of our greatest sort of challenges, if you like, is greenwashing, or as I call it, social washing. We absolutely need to make sure that what people say, they actually do. Walk the walk rather than just talk the talk, to quote a very famous predecessor.
Okay. So as CEO of Social Value Portal, you're at the forefront of measuring this impact, right? How does diversity within organizations and their stakeholders influence the creation of social value in your view?
So if I just break down how we measure social value a little bit more, I've mentioned social, economic and environmental impacts, and I'll just take it down to sort of the next level. We have a measurement framework called the TOM system, and it's called the TOM system because it's made up of a series of themes, outcomes and measures, hence TOM. And we have 4 themes. The first theme is work, the second theme is community, the third theme is environment, and the fourth theme is economy, supporting the economy. With each of those themes, we have a series of outcomes, and these are kind of objectives. These are outcomes that we think need, if they're delivered, we will build a fairer and more equitable society. So, for instance, under the work theme, we will have more jobs for disadvantaged people, or under the planet environment theme, we'll have efforts to reduce climate change, or under the community theme, we'll have support for community projects. But every outcome has a measure. So to keep the theme of jobs, under disadvantage, there'll be jobs for First Nations, for instance, if we're in Australia. How do we ensure that our First Nation peoples get opportunities for jobs, for work? In this country, in the UK, it'll be jobs for long-term unemployed, or jobs for those who are rehabilitating offenders. And so, in essence, the TOM system that we created is a kind of theory of change. It's like our manifesto. We are not a political party, but sometimes I feel like a politician, because I'm saying, look, these are the things that we need to do, Gertrude, to make sure our society is a fairer, more equitable place where there's opportunity for whatever your background, there's that opportunity. And so we encourage businesses to adopt the TOM system and to put it and embed it into how they do business. I mean, there's been this whole movement of CSR. I'm sure you've heard CSR, which is corporate social responsibility, and there'll be sort of diversity programs in the CSR, and it's like 1% of the budget that's set aside, and we say no, CSR is dead. Forget it. We don't want it about CSR. We want you to integrate diversity. We want you to integrate how you engage with the community into how you do your business. So it's done just by the very fact you're delivering your business, and that way you will build greater trust in the communities that you're working within.
So what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced or observed in promoting diversity within the sustainability sector, and how have you addressed these challenges?
So I think some of the biggest challenges around diversity, and what I should say is that we work with the public and the private sector. And so we work on two sides of that equation, if you like. On the public sector side, we are supporting with their procurement, and we're trying to get them to think and embed diversity into their procurement decision making about who to employ to deliver a service. And on the private sector side, we're trying to get them to embed diversity into their how they go about their business, so they can deliver more diversity and they can win more work with the public sector. So you get the demand and the supply side working together, and that's kind of what we're all about as an organisation. And so so there's two challenges we face. The first one within the public sector is inertia. We've done it this way for years and years, Guy. Why are you telling us to change? I mean, why we think we already have a diversity policy. We think we're already delivering. And so we then have to work out how can we prove to the buyer that actually they're not delivering a diverse supply chain, and actually it just isn't working. And then on the supply side, it's the burden. They say, do we really have to do this, Guy? It's just an added, but we just want to win the work and deliver the work for the public sector. Surely it's about the lowest cost, not the most value. Surely everyone just wants a low-cost solution delivered, and if you've got a bit of diversity in there, fine, but it's not a core issue. And we say no, it is about diversity because it's also about value. We need to move the conversation between the public and private sector, and private sector as a whole, away from lowest cost to best value or most economic value and social value. And that's why, as a business, we are called Social Value Portal, because we believe that it's value to society that really matters and counts in its widest sense.
So you specialize in finance transformation for sustainability. Can you discuss the role of diversity in FT4S and how diverse perspectives contribute to more sustainable financial strategies?
So finance transformation for sustainability, I guess. Money makes the world go around, right? So True. These are one of the issues, Gertrude, and I think that the closer we get to the money, more likely we're going to have an impact. But the closer you get to the money, the more likely they're going to be cynical because they just want to make money. And so you've got this sort of dichotomy. But having been at Deloitte, I'm not afraid of talking to the money. And actually, we're finding that with the right people in the room, you are able to change the conversation. So the money, the financiers, are seeing that they have an opportunity in how they spend their money to make a difference, or how they invest their money to make a difference. And so the money can come with strings. And so we're looking for responsible financiers, we're looking for responsible investors to say, look, we're happy to invest into you or lend you the money, but only if you do X, Y, and Z. Only if diversity is a part of it. I'll give you an example. So we've been working with Lloyds Bank. Lloyds Bank is a big one of the retail banks in this country, and they're part of a group of banks that have sustainable loans. And the sustainable loan is basically a loan that has a slightly lower interest rate on the basis that you deliver against a set of sustainability criteria. And one of our businesses that members is a company called Waits, which is a big construction company. They've taken out a loan with Lloyds Bank, and they've been asked to, as the condition to get a slight reduction on the interest rate, to deliver more social value, to deliver more diversity in their executive board, and to deliver a net zero. So they've got 3 criteria, and they are using the TOM system as part of that, and they are measuring and promoting women, especially women of all diversities, onto their boards, onto the senior management. And that way, I think we can get money to work for us. But you do need responsible investors. But I think one of the things that we often forget is people. And a lot of the people listening to your podcast will be investing into pensions. and so these pensions actually are investing into organizations, are putting money into banks. And so we need to recognize that we have a power within that. We're not a quiet voice, a lone voice. We can come together and we can actually be active in demanding more of our money that others are investing on our behalf.
In your work with carbon economics, how do diverse viewpoints contribute to developing effective carbon reduction strategies? And can you provide us with an example of this in action?
So I'm going to talk about climate justice, really, I think. And for us, net zero carbon is a very important trajectory that we all need to be on and we need to be thinking about. But actually, I see carbon as a means to deliver climate justice, because if we can reduce carbon emissions and we can reduce the reliance on expensive fossil fuels, then we will be able to deliver climate justice. And that is pretty fundamental to how we want to move forward. And so we're working with a number of organizations to help them on their net zero path. And as part of that, we are thinking about the outcomes that they can deliver by achieving a net zero carbon a pathway. And so that might be reduction in energy costs for people and contributing to the cost of living crisis. It might be reducing the impact of climate change and ensuring that populations are not suffering from floods. So there's a whole range of issues that we'll pick up and encourage businesses to deliver on. And this is all about bringing people into the centre of the conversation, or back into the centre of that conversation. Of course, climate change is ultimately about people, although I do feel that organisations tend to get just lost in the ton of carbon, the CO2e in this. I mean, it's science. Everyone talks about science-based targets, which are fantastic, and of course we've got to get the 1.5. But we mustn't ever forget that the planet is all about people. And we need to make sure that people and communities are always kept to the centre of that discussion and that debate.
It is true. Sometimes we do forget the people elements to things. So sustainable design is critical for future development. How do you incorporate diversity and inclusion principles into sustainable design principles? And why is this important?
So I started out my career as an engineer, designing buildings and designing for place. And because I have always been on a pathway of delivering sustainable solutions for the built environment, one of the starting places for that when you go to a place is the climate and is the society you're in. And some of your listeners might have heard of the term vernacular architecture or climate responsive architecture. I mean, really, that's something that we're all about. And actually, you could say that it's also community responsive architecture. Development and design needs to be responsive to place. It's no good just designing buildings as if they're spaceships. Buildings are not spaceships. They don't just land and be and then could sort of take off. They need to land and grow roots and actually support the community. So when we now work with developers and building owners, we will work with them and start having a conversation about their place that they're in. How do they build a network? How do they build a community of activity within the place they're in to respond to local needs? And those local needs might be around job security, it might be around health, it might well be around diversity, it might well be around sort of giving opportunities to people from different backgrounds. And so for us, diversity and place are pretty fundamental. Social value is not a kind of virtual concept, Gertrude. Social value is always rooted in the community. How do you deliver social value? You deliver social value when the person says, who's receiving it, thank you. That's what it's all about. It's about getting that impact and making a different positive impact on someone's lives, and that I think is fundamental to how we go about our business. And so development is all about that. I mean, I think there is a danger, and I do get frustrated when people think that buildings are just ways of making money. No, they're not. Every building has an occupier in it, and every occupier should and could have an agency within the community they're in. They ought to be employing people from that community. They ought to be supporting the community in 1,000 ways. Of course, that will make them a better business, and also the people that they're employing will actually enjoy being there much more.
Yeah, that's very true. So when conducting life cycle analysis, how do you ensure that diverse perspectives and inputs are considered, particularly in relation to different communities and ecosystems?
A life cycle cost analysis revolves around understanding the wider impact of a product, an organization, on our communities. And I think that, as with all these things, you need to understand and develop your own sort of impact framework. And so we have our TOMS framework, the TOMS system, and that in a way is our impact framework. And we measure organizations on how they're performing around that. And so we look at diversity within that. That's fundamental. And when we talk about diversity, we mean diversity of supply chain, diversity of employment, diversity of support for communities. And so that is a fundamental part of our process.
So as a seasoned facilitator and public speaker, how do you approach the topic of diversity and inclusion in your presentations, especially when discussing sustainability and social value?
So, as a public speaker, I do a lot of public speaking.
Yes.
And I guess I will always talk about diversity as not always directly, not always a sort of direct sort of commentary on diversity, but also always within how I am presenting the work that we do, because diversity underpins everything that our business, our organisation is all about. Of course, I have to be careful. I'm a white man. I'm a white, sort of late middle-aged white man as well. And so I think diversity is something that I am very aware of. But I think also there's what I've also become aware of is that diversity means different things to different people in different places. And so I'm learning I've done most of my work in the UK, and so diversity means one thing there. And so, for instance, we don't have a kind of a First Nation native people in the UK, whereas we moved to Australia, and we've just started now working in Australia. We've set up a Social Value Task Force. Of course, First Nation is a very live issue in Australia. And so I think that it's really important to not have a fixed view of what diversity is, but always to be aware that you need to respond to place and need. And that for me is fundamental. And so when I'm talking diversity and public speaking, I'll make sure that I'm presenting and encouraging people to think in ways that promote diversity in their own decision making.
Fantastic. So my last question for you is looking into the future. So looking towards the future, how do you envisage the integration of diversity and sustainability evolving? And what steps should businesses and individuals take to foster both?
So what's my vision? My vision is of a social value economy, Gertrude, and that's an economy that puts community first. That's not to say that businesses don't have to or can't make money, because I believe that capitalism is a very important vehicle, at least part of delivering sustainable development. But I do think we need to put community back at the centre of the discussion and ensure it's all. That's what a social value economy is all about. A social value economy is a place where organisations of all sorts, public, private, the voluntary sector work together. I call this radical collaboration, working not only within your own sector, but across sectors, but also always thinking about how you can collaborate to deliver more value for communities. How do you buy things better so it improves our economy? How do you engage with communities in a diversity conversation? And if you can get that into the center of your business, then we've got a chance of developing a social value economy. So my vision is an economy where organizations all think about social value as a fundamental part of what they're doing, not just making money. And so that's our mission as a business, is to support businesses to unlock value for communities. How do we ensure that business is doing more, not doing less, doing more good rather than less harm?
Fantastic. Well, Guy, thank you so much for coming online and sharing with us today. There's a lot of work yet to be done in the social value space. And it sounds to me like your portal is well on the way to spreading this concept around the world. So besides Australia, what other countries are you penetrating?
So our ambition, Gertrude, is to be global.
Yes.
We've started work in Australia, but we actually are developing a social value framework for France and Italy at the moment. And across Europe, and we're also going to be looking across the United States as well.
Fantastic. Well, I wish you luck. You have a lot of work ahead of you, definitely. This was an absolute pleasure talking to you tonight. Thank you so much, Guy.
My pleasure. Thanks very much for your time. Bye.
And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. The Diversity Connector is connecting you with people and voices from all over the world, discussing diversity from different aspects. Today, we talked about social values, so tune back again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and bye for now. So wrap, everybody, on today's episode of the Diversity Connector podcast. Thank you for tuning in and being part of our vibrant and global conversation. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a tapestry of diverse perspectives. Remember, every story you've heard today is a thread in the larger fabric of our shared humanity. So, as you step back into your world, carry these stories with you and let them inspire you to embrace and celebrate the rich diversity around us. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these inspiring stories with more listeners. Do follow us on social media by looking for the Diversity Connector podcast for more updates. Until then, keep connecting, keep listening, and keep celebrating the beauty of diversity. This is the Diversity Connector podcast signing off. Stay curious, stay open, and definitely stay